Okay, so with regard to the emotional swings, what they do is they, as quick as they arrive, as quick as the rage or the explosiveness happens, it passes just as quickly. So it will probably only last a couple of hours, if even that much. So it can slightly be confused with mood disorder. The difference is that with mood disorder, it lasts over a couple of days, usually 2 to 3 weeks. You'd have depression and mania, and then the person will crash. Whereas with borderline, it's usually within a day that there'll be switches, that there will be rotations in emotions. But I've had to read and really think about it to understand what that actually means, because in having friends with bipolar and having friends with borderline and having friends with both, it can actually seem confusing, because you're particularly if you see moments of mania, but what they can just be is extreme happiness and extreme excitement for no reason, and then it can switch to crying. The problem is, for the person on the other side receiving it, they would actually feel, particularly if there was rage or hurtful things or activities done, like a behavior done to the healthy person, they would actually take time to process and feel hurt. It would be harder for them to actually let it go, because they're trying to process, how did we get there, and why did that happen, and how do we move forward. And the other person has already soothed their mood now, because they've gotten rid of that frustration or the rage, and so they feel better temporarily until the next cycle happens, or the next pattern happens. So the person who doesn't have BPD would feel like, this is really hurtful, I don't know if I like this, I don't know if I like being treated this way. Then you have the feeling of suspiciousness, which is actually interesting, because it's / paranoia, right? And in reading about this now, the feeling of suspiciousness towards other people and towards situations. So as in, you're questioning people, you're questioning the motives, you're questioning even the situation. You're questioning whether they're lying or whether they're telling the truth, and then you're assuming the worst. Okay, this isn't going to happen, this is... But what's interesting is it's connected to the person's thoughts, as in the BPD's person's thoughts, and then it comes out in other words or their behavior. Like, for example, accusing you of doing something that you're not doing. And it can also be described as being out of touch of reality. So you're seeing things that generally aren't there, or you're assuming that there's things there that generally aren't there. But what is interesting about this, with this suspiciousness, is it's connected to stress. So it might not even be a highly stressful situation, but for the BPD, they see highly stressful situations as a threat, and so then they see the situation and the person involved in it as a threat. So under stress, the BPD is more out of touch of reality. The more stress, the more out of touch of reality. The only way to really help that is talk therapy. There's no medication for that. That is talk therapy. That is saying, talking yourself through it. I can be calm. This is not a bad situation. I need to choose this emotion. I need to choose to behave this way. You talk your way out of feeling suspicious. There's no chemical imbalance. So there's no take medication and I'll stop being suspicious. You have to talk your way out of feeling suspicious. It's interesting because with suspicion comes dissociation. And this was something I'm not too familiar with, so I had to go research on it, and I've been researching it for about a month now. But in this recent article that I read today, it was mentioned as connected to the paranoia, which I've never seen that before. And it might have just been that I was focusing on other stuff and when I was reading about it from different sources. But dissociation is connected to suspiciousness. And so what was funny for me is before I explain what dissociation is, and then give the signs of the person on the outside, what they'd be looking for. So on the outside of the person with dissociation, what you would see, okay, is the brain evaluation. So with BPDs in the brain is on high alert, and the way that they describe it is when you're in a stressful situation and your body either wants to go fight or flight, so either want to run or you want to attack and defend your ground. Okay, so BPD brain is constantly on alert, and it says high alert. So this is also explains why when they actually relax and sleep, they're tired. Actually, they're exhausted, and this is why sometimes it's difficult for them to also get up the next day, because by the time they switch off their brain and actually rest. So in general, mentally, they are drained. They are incredibly intelligent people, so when they focus on something, they get to know that topic meticulously. And I saw that in my friend as a lawyer, and she absolutely loved the law, and she absolutely loved the news, but it did come in roller coaster rides. So what they're saying is, for the person whose brain is on high alert, the whole world seems scary and stressful. And so your brain switches to flight or fight. So it's like the switch. You picture in the kitchen and you have too many electrical appliances going, so you have the laundry machine going, you have the stove on, and you're working on the oven and things like this. And then the light is on, all of a sudden the switch is going to trip. And you're going to have to go downstairs and flip it up again. This is what it's like in the brain of the BPD. The trip goes off. And so rational thinking goes out the door. So it is a survival tactic. It's possible like a zone out from reality. But the thing is that it's not necessary for the situation, and this is where the person on the outside is like, what is going on? Because the BPD is freaking out over something that's actually small, or maybe that the other person doesn't even know about, because the BPD is keeping it to themselves, and maybe because they're aware that it's a small thing, but they're freaking out. And so it can even be like in the moment where the BPD freaks out over something and the other person's like, this is not worthy of like freak out zone, of rage, of fear, of severe anxiety. And so what they're saying is that the brain goes into survival mode, but the situation at hand isn't that stressful or isn't that bad. And what's fascinating about what I just read is that you can teach your brain to stop doing that. You can teach your brain how to handle stress better by self-soothing in the moment. And that way you actually create new neural pathways in your brain. So the more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and more it becomes an automatic to be calm. So your brain would, so it sounds like the trip switch would still go off in your brain, but you'd be like, okay, this is not that big of a deal, there's no need for me to freak out, I'm okay. And so therefore you can change the way that you think, feel,